I am here to tell you right now on the record, you don't know they're going to win those games. You don't know. Look, I watched football for 30 years, and every year there's a game or two this time of the season where you're like, oh, that's a joke. And then you'll look up 3 hours later and you're like, what the hell happened? How did I? And Chiefs fans ought to know this because it gave us one of the greatest broadcasting moments of all time when the Dolphins went into New England in 2019. And every Chiefs fan in the world was like, all right, well, get ready for the wild card round. And the Dolphins went up there at 4-11 and beat New England in Foxborough. Like, you don't know. And the point is, what if the Chiefs win this game and the Bills lose? And then the Chiefs are like, wow, that's it. We have the number one seed. Like, if you lay down this week or you play Wentz and you don't and you lose, and then the Bills were to lose Sunday, well, then you're like, well, shit, now we got to play again. You don't think like that in the NFL. You try to win every game. You go out and you try to win, and that's what they're going to do on Saturday.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
It's That Football Show here on KC Sports Network. I'm Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Matt Verderame. Thank you to our sponsors, Holiday Distillery, Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon. Week 16 action here as the Chiefs face the Houston Texans, final home game of the season. And Matt's shaping up to be a pretty good one as we are no shortage of storylines at this point in the year.
Yeah. Well, they're undefeated at home. So trying to get a perfect record at home. So I'm pretty sure that's the first time in Mahomes' career that would happen.
Yeah, I think it's like the first time since like 2003 maybe.
Yeah, it's been a long time since they've gone undefeated at home, which I feel like in the 90s he did like every year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so they're trying to go undefeated. You've got the Texans coming in. They clinched their division. This game doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot to the Texans in terms of record and seeding. Mahomes, it was a storyline like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I think it's pretty clear at this point he's going to play. They got one more practice, but barring some kind of a setback, I think he's playing. And then we can get into it. But Hollywood Brown's going to be making his debut, according to Jeremy Fowler, a buddy of mine over at ESPN. So, yeah, man, I think that's tip of the iceberg for a week 16. That is going to be very interesting, both in Kansas City and elsewhere.
I think that there might be some complementary forces working, we could call it, in terms of Patrick Mahomes' ankle and Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown returning might make Patrick Mahomes be like, well, hey, look, maybe the ankle doesn't feel so bad after all. Maybe I can go give this one a run. So if you can have as many reps as possible with those two guys before the playoffs, that's going to be really key. Also, this game is big in terms of like seeding implications. Like the Chiefs do like need to win it. I guess not technically need to win it, but like still they do need to win it, if that makes sense. I find it funny that like I don't know how you feel about this, Matt, but I kind of felt like the Mahomes ankle injury was already blown out of proportion kind of by the national media a little bit because, look, I mean, after the game, he wanted to go in the game. I understand like the adrenaline's going, anything like that. He wanted to go back in the game. I never really thought it was as serious as people were making out to me. Maybe just because we've seen Patrick Mahomes recover from a sprained ankle a lot better than a lot of other human beings have, but I never really thought it was going to be season ending or any more catastrophic than it was.
Look, I said this. So I'll make this funny. Over at Sports Illustrated, we have our staff picks every week, which by the way, I'm dominating it. And I actually had a perfect week. I never thought I'd do that in my life. That's right. And I've had like 2 weeks where I've been like 15-1. So I am rolling in an epic. And by the way, if you're curious, I picked the Chiefs this week. But I had a couple of staff members. Well, I will let them remain anonymous, or you can go see our picks and you can then mock them. Who are like picking on Monday, putting it in the old Google sheet. And I go, yeah, Texans. I was like, why? Mahomes isn't going to play. I'm like, oh, yes. Like, bro, he's 1,000% going to play. He's going, do you have inside information? Like, I don't even need to ask anybody.
Right.
Like, he's going to play. This idea, this pervasive, weird narrative And like, you're right, it is the national media. And I say that as part of the national media with this. Like, look, this idea, this weird thought, like, well, what the Chiefs should do here is sit them. Like, you understand they try to win football games, right? Like,
Right.
they're going to try to win the game. Now, if he was super compromised, okay, fine. I saw one person say, well, they should sit on the rest of the regular season. Yeah, man, I'm sure that's what they're going to do. They've worked their ass off all year to try to get the number 1 seed. And I'm sure they're just going to tank now for the last 3 games and hope Carson Wentz can just ride to glory here over the last 3 games. Like, they would have to lock Mahomes into a broom closet the last 3 games of the year. Like, just, oh, yeah, Pat, listen, we know you've given it all you've got, but why don't you just sit this one out and hope for the best? Like, he said after the game in Cleveland, if the game was in doubt, I would have played.
Yeah.
I can honestly say I never thought he was in danger of missing this game, ever,
Correct.
at any point. Now, look, you want to argue, hey, they got a game to play with. Okay, but they're not going to look at it like that. They're going to look at it like, well, if we win this game, now we only got to win one of the last 2. And look, I know the Bill schedule's a joke, right? They got New England twice and the Jets. I get that. They're very likely to win all 3 of these games. I am here to tell you right now on the record, you don't know they're going to win those games. You don't know. Like, look, I watched football for 30 years, and every year there's a game or 2 this time of the season where you're like, oh, that's a joke. And then you'll look up 3 hours later and you're like, what the hell happened? How did I? And Chiefs fans ought to know this because it gave us one of the greatest broadcasting moments of all time when the Dolphins went into New England in 2019. And every Chiefs fan in the world was like, all right, well, get ready for the wild card round. And the Dolphins went up there at 4-11 and beat New England in Foxborough. Like, you don't know. And the point is, what if the Chiefs win this game and the Bills lose, and then the Chiefs are like, wow, that's it. We have the number 1 seed. Like, if you lay down this week or you play Wentz and you don't and you lose, and then the Bills were to lose Sunday, well, then you're like, well, shit, now we got to play again. You don't think like that. If you try to win every game, you go out and you try to win, and that's what they're going to do on Saturday.
I think that the national media's handling of the Mahomes injury, right? It's a big story. It's a huge story. The best player in the league has an injury. That's obviously going to dominate news cycles. But then, Matt, I don't know how much you've seen of just like the online social media narrative of, specifically Bills fans when it comes to Patrick Mahomes and his injury. They're like, oh, he's faking it. Oh, he's faking it. Look at this guy. He's being so dramatic. He's faking it. And I think that the media coverage of his injury kind of does play into that, right? Because as you and I both said, like we know this team well. We're very familiar with this team, the workings of this team. You and I never thought that like it was that serious, but like other people,
right,
relying on the national media to inform them about the Kansas City Chiefs, thought that it was a very serious injury. And that's why I think sometimes people are like, oh, he's faking his injury if he's going to play this week. He's like, oh, he's being too dramatic. His limping was too dramatic for him being able to play this week. I think that's ridiculous, number one. They're just always looking for something to knock Patrick Mahomes with. But I remember when that first happened, and was it the Philly Super Bowl, right? Where he hurt his ankle, and then they're like, oh, then he ran for it, and then they're like, oh, he was faking it. It's like, what are we talking about here, man? What are we doing?
Look, I've seen a lot of that on Twitter, and you're right. It does come from a certain fan base, at least in my timeline, where you see a lot of that. And it's like, look, I get it. Like, you hate the guy, you hate the team. Like, and I don't mean hate in like a real world sense, but like in a sports sense.
Right.
But it's like, did you see the hit? And also like, listen, Josh Allen might be up for an Oscar at some point in time.
Has to be.
I mean, nobody flops more at the quarterback position than Josh Allen does. And that's not like some like subjective, that is objective. Like, watch the games. He does it all the time. And by the way, fine. I don't blame him. Whatever. If he can pick up free 15 yards in a big spot, fine. But I will say with Mahomes, I can't think of one instance in his career, and maybe there has been, but I can't off the top of my head think of one, where he's just blatantly flopped and I'm sure there's a couple. I'm not thinking of them, but like, it's just such a weird thing. Like, did you watch the Netflix doc with him where they're doing nonstop work on his ankle? Like, what do you think? They just did that all for show? I don't know, man. But see, like, I'm a little bit different in this sense from a Chiefs perspective. I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's like when people are always like, it's rigged. It's rigged. Great. Hope it is.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hope it's rigged for the next 10 years. Sounds awesome. Hope they go for a 12-peat. Like, that sounds great. If I don't feed into it because it's so dumb. Like, if they win the Super Bowl this year, it doesn't matter how they do it. If they win the Super Bowl this year, all you're going to hear is it was rigged. It was rigged. It was set up this way. Blah, blah, blah. Great. Awesome. Great script. Bravo. Hope it happens. I don't care. And it's just honestly how I look at it. And that's how I feel about when people are like, he's faking an injury. Yeah, okay.
I do think that that's ridiculous. I think the one time that other fans point to Patrick Mahomes flopping is against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game when who was that? When
Osai hit him 2 miles out of bounds?
Yeah, people say he flopped there.
I mean, Mahomes was basically in the parking lot, and Osai was like, hold on a minute. And then, but even after, like, I don't know how many people remember this. After that game, there were a handful of, like, national media pundits who were like, I don't know if that's a penalty.
Yes.
It's like, you fucking blind?
Yeah.
He literally hit him 2 steps out of bounds. There's every once in a while, you're watching a game, and something so blatant happens that you're like, oh my God. I remember watching that play in real time and not even looking for a flag because I was just like, well, there's a flag. Like, it wasn't like one of those things where you're like, well, are they going to call it? You're like, the only question is how many flags are there? Like, like, is it 1? Is it 3? Like, by the way, ironically, against the same team with the Bengals with their pass interference earlier this year. Like, there was not a question in my mind, like, are they going to call this? It was just like, okay, is the back judge and the side judge, are they both going to throw flags? Or, like, is it just going to be one of them? Like, there's no question. He just bulldozed Rashee Rice. And then you get these same dopes after the game where, like, well, if you look at the rule book, and then they conveniently chop out half of the rule book in the screenshot. Then in the part they chop out, so can't play through the back.
Right.
You're like, what do we do? Like, we don't have enough time in the world in this show. No. We have dumbed down America to a point where people are so dumb, they will believe anything. And it is not exempt football. Okay. And the Chiefs are living proof of that. It's just a conspiracy constantly that, like, the best team in the world wins games. How do they do this? It's like, well, because they're good. I mean, and how, like, 9 Hall of Famers at the end, like, that's probably how. But that's where we are.
The Chief, I don't know who originated this term, and I want to give proper credit. So if anyone knows who originated the term Chiefs derangement syndrome, I would love to give them proper credit because I think it's kind of perfectly encapsulates the rest of the NFL of just like the Chiefs have ruined some people, man. Like the way that they watch the game, like they can't be having fun watching football the way that they watch the Chiefs play football. And like they have just ruined so many people in like their outlook on how the game is done and how the game has been officiated. Like I can't. Why the officiating sucks across the board, right? Like it's not just like in Chiefs games. Like officiating has been bad, but like it's
go
across the board.
Go watch, like I do because I'm a loser. Go watch like a game from 1993 on YouTube. Okay,
yeah.
There's no instant replay. The officiating, people would lose their minds. Like there was one play I was watching recently. It's like a Chiefs Raiders game from the 90s. A Chiefs player was tackled on a kickoff return, like both knees and hips on the ground, proceeds to get up and keep running as though he wasn't tackled. They just gave him the extra 40 yards. Like every body part was down from the waist down. And they're like, it's fine. Like officiating has sucked forever. We just haven't had 6 different camera angles on every play and super slow-mo and HD and social media and 24-hour television. Like, and by the way, people have had stupid, idiotic takes forever, but they've just been confined to their local markets. Now they've branched out and they're killing us all. Okay, It's like last year when the Chiefs were giving up like 8 points a game in the playoffs. And I don't care. I'll just call this guy out by name. Craig Carton would go on every show he could find and be like, I think the Ravens are going to win 35-10. You're like, do you think the Ravens are going to have 12 quarters to play this game? Because otherwise they're not scoring 35. Like, if you want to pick the Chiefs to lose, fine. But like 35-10. And then would like pick that score every game, the whole rest. And then Jason McIntyre would go on like Cowherd show.
Right.
And, talk about something that you're like, okay, this, like, somebody cut the microphone. Just stop. Like, I mean, hell, I believe, and I don't want to speak at a turn, did he ever take this week? He was talking about how the Giants should move on from Daniel Jones.
I did not see that.
I'm like,
that's
Jesus,
incredible.
man. Like, what? Like, are you, like, how is this happening? I'm going to look this up to make sure I didn't, like, dream that. But I'm, like, 99% sure. I know he had to take about inside the NBA being the worst thing that's happened to the NBA in the last 10 years.
He did say that, and that is just terrible.
Staggering commentary.
Yeah. It's just objectively wrong, too.
Like, what are you talking about? But this is what I mean. But, like, people give, like, credence to this nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, on December 17th, Funhouse, which is a hilarious account, by the way, tweeted out, I won't use the nickname they use because I'm not going to do that. But like Jason McIntyre, who has blocked everyone on X, wonders if the Giants will be cutting Daniel Jones in the offseason. This was tweeted out on December 17th. I mean,
Daniel Jones has been on the Vikings for how long? 3 weeks? 4 weeks? A month, maybe?
Like a month? Like, I mean, honestly, God, almost a month. Like, and like, again, look, I try to give grace when it's like, hey, man, it's some, like, backup tackle who got cut and put on weight. Okay, well, it happens.
Right.
It's the starting quarterback of the team. Like, what? Like, what? And, I remember it was like, and look, I'm not picking on Jason because there's a million examples. And look, I've fucked things up too. God knows. I wrote a film study like a month and a half ago, and I was talking about David Njoku, and it like wasn't about David Njoku, but it involved him. He was involved in the play.
Yeah.
A million Browns fans were like, hey, asshole, like David Njoku wasn't in the game. It was Jordan Akins, my bad. It's like, it happens. So I'm not, like, look, I'm not immune from this. I'm not, but my point is, like, while all of us can screw up from time to time, there are certain people who just, it's like, it's completely unenforceable. It's just like, here's my wild take about the Chiefs. There was a guy on ESPN, it was yesterday, who said if the Chiefs didn't have Mahomes, they'd be the number one pick in the draft this year.
I saw that. Yeah.
Like, are you not aware the Giants exist? Like, look, I'm not the biggest Carson Wentz guy. They would be a playoff team with Carson Wentz. They would win Super Bowl, but like they'd go 10-7. I'm like, what are we doing?
I think 10-7 is fair. I think like right now they'd be 7-7 if they had Carson Wentz, and they could probably win the last couple with Carson Wentz.
I think they would just be like, they'd
be a good team. They'd still be good. It wouldn't be elite.
Fine. You know what they would be? They'd be what they were with Alex Smith. They would win 10 games and like maybe a wild card game. Like, but like then but it's also it's the argument. It's like saying, well, if the 2015 Cavs didn't have LeBron,
right? Yes.
Yeah, sure, right. Great. And if I won Powerball, I'd be retired, but I didn't.
Right.
Like, what are we talking about? It's a crazy discourse. But look, let's also get into a few other things in this game here before we get totally off the rails.
Yeah.
Buddy of mine over at ESPN, I say it because he's a lovely individual, good person. Aaron Schatz had a really, really interesting tweet. It says, according to FTN Fantasy, C.J. Stroud ranks 31st out of 32 qualifying quarterbacks in DVOA this season against the blitz. I'm going to go ahead and guess that the Chiefs are going to bring 12 at some point in this game. They had a lot of success blitzing their linebackers against the Browns.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you see a very similar tact in this game. If the Chiefs just say, we'll bring 6, sure, what the hell? Feels like a kind of game, based on that stat, you might see a lot of this.
Offensive line for the Texans is not great. Specifically their interior, it is not good. They haven't really been able to do a whole lot protection-wise. I do think it's going to be interesting. The Chiefs kind of got some momentum against the Browns, right? they were the Browns, right? And it was Jameis Winston throwing up these YOLO balls. And look, Steve Spagnuolo talked about this in the press conference. You got to catch the ones that were thrown to you. And they did. Like, that's what they did. That's all you could ask for. They caught the ones that were thrown at them. I do think that, like, even though it was the Browns, that was positive to see from the Chiefs defense. Steve Spagnuolo, they had to end up moving Trent McDuffie into the slot because of the injury that they had with Shamari Connor. And I don't know how they'll handle that going forward. Shamari Connor's not going to play this game. He took kind of a nasty hit, and he was never really going to play in this game. It's going to be interesting how they handle that, because Spag said that, Trent gets some nickel reps every walkthrough day. Like, every walkthrough day, he's getting nickel reps. But they also given a lot to what's his name? Wallace.
Roland Wallace.
Chris Wallace. Yeah, Chris Roland Wallace. There to give him some nickel snaps as well. But Trent McDuffie is coming off probably his best game of his career, where he gets his first interception. He played in the slot a lot of that game. And, like, that is, like, a big thing where he's really effective out of the slot. And Matt, kind of to your point, they can blitz him out of the slot. He's like one of the best blitzing corners in the National Football League. And he can blitz a lot better out of the slots than he can, way out wide past the numbers. So I do think that there is something there with having Trent McDuffie back in the slot if they can do it. Doesn't sound like Steven Nelson's going to play. When they talked about it on, what was that, Monday when Andy Reid talked? Maybe it was Tuesday that Andy Reid talked, where he talked about that. He said Stevie's going to need some time still. So he might still be getting into to some football shape there. But that's going to be really interesting to me on the defensive side of the ball, how they keep that momentum going. Like, look, the Browns offense was not good. No. This Texans offense isn't very good. Like, they haven't been the Texans offense that we anticipated at the beginning of the season. Yeah, they've had some injuries. Stephon Diggs not playing, but I mean, they're fairly healthy now from where they have been. I don't know. I just feel kind of confident after that Browns performance in this Chiefs defense that they can kind of get after Stroud and cause some problems.
I think they're going to be very good in this game. Look, the Texans offense, as you mentioned, okay, so I think we can all agree the Chiefs offense not a ball fire.
Yeah.
Averaging 5.1 yards per play. You know who else is averaging 5.1 yards per play? Houston. Houston. The Texans running the ball below average, like 4.2 yards per carry. They're fine. Passing the ball, like, they're not bad. Yards per completion, they're 13th at 11.2. By the way, the Chiefs are a disgusting 26. Sandwich right between the Browns and the Raiders.
Love that.
It's great, yeah. Yards per attempt, Houston 17th. It's not, but then, like, you keep going, and you're like, all right, well, like, how are they situationally? Third down, Chiefs, by the way, still significantly ahead of everybody else. Houston's 19th. They're behind the Saints. Okay. And in the red zone, Houston's 18th. Like, they're bad almost across the board offensively. They're just somehow, by the way, the Chiefs are 9th in points per drive. Like, no idea how that's possible. The Texans are 17th, and 100th of a point better than the Jets.
That's not good.
Whatever. Right? They're 22nd in yards per drive. Chiefs are 13th. Like, the Chiefs are better offensively than the Texans are.
Wow.
I think it's arguable. Like, they're better than them. Now, defensively, it's a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Houston's numbers are slightly better than Kansas City's in a lot of areas. Okay. The Chiefs are better against the run. Now, Houston has a ton of sacks. They have 45, just second in the NFL. Chiefs have actually moved to the middle of the pack after the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Pressure rate, the Chiefs get a higher pressure rate.
Yeah.
Hurry rate, the Chiefs have a higher hurry rate. Quarterback knockdowns, Chiefs are second in the NFL. Okay, like, better than Houston. Houston is not a blitzing team. Obviously, the Chiefs are second in the league in blitzing. So there's a lot to, like, break down. But what I would say about Houston that I think is interesting, Houston has played a schedule. Here is who Houston has beaten this year. They had beaten, I have Pulse, so make sure I'm not telling tales out of school here. Okay. Colts, Bears, Jags, Bills was the big one. Patriots, Colts, Cowboys with Cooper Rush, Jags, Dolphins. They have beaten one team that's worth the shit all year long.
Mm-hmm.
All year long. Okay? Like, yeah, your defensive numbers are going to be good when you're playing Mac Jones and Will Levis and whatever the hell the Colts are doing at quarterback. And Cooper. I mean, the quarterbacks they've beaten this year, Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen. Again, that's the big one.
Mm-hmm.
The Pats game I'm looking at, was it May in that game? Or was it? I'm trying to think if it was May or Brissett. It was
Early.
May. I think it was his first start. Greg May in his first start. Anthony Richardson again. Cooper Rush, Mac Jones, and Tua. Let's say that other than the Allen game, not a bunch of Hall of Famers in that group. Like, I think this thing about how great the Texans are defensively, a little bit overblown.
Yeah.
Like, it has been just the biggest. The Chiefs have beaten Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow this year, and the Niners before they were a complete walking infirmary.
True.
You know, they've beaten Herbert twice. You know, they've beaten real guys. Real guys. Who's that?
Jameis.
Jameis. Yeah. Kirk Cousins before he was like a corpse.
Right.
Like, beat Baker.
Yeah.
You know, like, they've beaten real guys and like shut down real guys this year. The Texans did a great job against Josh Allen. Although I would also point out in that game that they didn't have Cooper yet. Shakir wasn't playing in that game. Like, not quite the same. I'm pretty sure James Cook also didn't play in that game.
Ooh.
So, like, a little bit different. Let's just say that if the Texans shut the Chiefs down in this game, I will be mildly surprised. Even with the Chiefs' offensive struggles. It's like the idea that, like, the Texans are some juggernaut. I don't know if that's really true.
Well, this has kind of been the story of the Texans, though, Matt. When we talk about them last year, they played a last-place schedule last year, and they didn't really beat anybody. They did finally play a first-place schedule this year, and we all said, like, going into the year, hey, look, we're going to figure out how good this team really is because they're now playing a first-place schedule. We'll see how it is. But that first-place schedule didn't really turn out to be that tough.
Because their division's a joke. The division's a joke. But, like, they played Minnesota, got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
Played the Packers. Stroud was awful in that game and lost to the Packers. Played the Lions. Got 5 picks off Jared Goff in a home game and lost the game. Okay? Like, when you look at them, other than the Buffalo game, they also somehow managed to lose to the Jets in a game that should be studied for years. Trying to think of the other loss they had. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like that, those are 4 of the 5. They've lost repeatedly to every good team they've played, and then also the Jets. Like, they've lost a lot of games this season that you're like, if you're good, wouldn't you have won that game? Or at least like the Lions game on the surface, you're like, well, it's the Lions. You have 5 interceptions. You won that game by 20 points. Like, they were like trailing most of the fourth quarter in that game. So yeah, I think they're fine. I think the Texans are fine. But are like I'll tell you right now, if you said to me, would you rather play the Texans or the Chargers in a playoff game? I'd rather play Houston.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it's that close. And I don't even think all that much of the Chargers, and I still think they're better than Houston. Like, if the Chiefs shut down Nico Collins in this game, what are the Texans doing?
Right.
I don't know. Like, Tank Dell occasionally? Like, what is going to happen? Now, of course, I feel like that's a comment that you make, and then Tank Dell goes for 200.
Right.
But, like, if you look at the Texans this year, it has not been a team that you go, yeah, they're really just they're ripping it up. Like, they're not. I mean, Stroud for this season has thrown 17 touchdowns and 9 picks, and he's completing 63% of his passes.
Yeah.
Mixon is really slowed down since a great start to the year. And other than Collins, nobody has 575 yards receiving on the team. Like, they don't really throw to the backs a ton. Schultz is 437 at tight end. Like, he's fine. Like, there's just, it's a bunch of guys. Collins is really the only one. Okay, that guy's a great player. Everybody else, And defensively, listen, Hunter and Anderson, like, they could destroy the game. That is how. If Houston wins this game, that's how. Okay. You like to think that Andy and the coaching staff are like, hey, gonna have to block those guys. Now, the way the Chiefs have played this year, God only knows. But I don't think Houston's good. Like, I think they're fine. They're an average football team.
I agree, and I do wanted to move on to talk a little bit about kind of like the trenches, like the trench warfare in this game, especially with the Chiefs' offensive line, kind of that being up in the air before we hit the break here, and talk about the rest of the National Football League because DJ Humphries still hasn't practiced this week as the time I'm recording this podcast, and it would be a shock if he was a full participant on Thursday and played on Saturday, right? Like that doesn't happen. Like that just doesn't happen with Andy Reid. So that would be a shock if it happened. I assume it's Joe Tooney again out there at left tackle. Like, I mean, I guess that worked until the Chiefs decided they were going to drop back and throw it 17 straight times for 17 straight incompletions and take 2 seconds off the clock against the Browns with a 21-point lead. Nevertheless, you'd have to think the strategy, number one, has to be different. And I think that it's probably going to be Tooney when it comes down to what the offensive line is going to be. And they have a good pass rush. The Texans have a good pass rush. I think you bring up a really good point about like if the Texans are to win this game, it's going to start with that pass rush getting home.
Yes. I don't think if the Chiefs block the edges, they're winning this game. Yeah. I just don't see a world other than, like a complete, pea pants situation where they turn over 4 times or something. Like, the Texans aren't good enough to beat them if this isn't like a Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter spectacular.
Right.
The problem is it could be a Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter spectacular because Juwan Taylor, like, here's the question with Juwan Taylor. Does Juwan Taylor just line up 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and say, screw it, like call it every play? Just to get off a little bit quicker, a little hitch to the giddy up there? Like, and then a left tackle, you're going to play Tooney. So Caliendo's got to play inside, so I think it's probably the right move. But it's like, look, Tooney's amazing, but he's not a tackle. It's just, I honestly, if I were the Chiefs, and they'll never do this because this is not who they are, I would run the crap out of the ball in this game. Yeah. That's what I would do. I'd run the ball at them inside all game long. I'd slow down the pass rush. I'd play a shorter, more controlled passing game. But it's the Chiefs. So Andy's going to come out and throw on the first 10 plays of the game. And for reasons I'll never understand, and then come out afterward, be like, listen, you know what? I got to be better there. I got to be more aware of the game situation there. It's fair. It's fair point. I'm not going to argue with it. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm expecting.
It worked too against Cleveland. They were running at Myles Garrett. They were pulling towards him. They were getting Trey Smith downhill, going at Myles Garrett, and they're running the ball. Maybe not as efficiently as they had in previous games, but look, I think you sacrificed the efficiency to get Patrick Mahomes a little bit of a breather there for a play or two.
Yeah.
From getting hit. I think you sacrificed that. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I do think running the ball is going to be key again this week, but no shortage of storylines in week 16 of NFL action. We're going to take a break. We got some more Jets stuff to talk about. That organization is a dumpster fire. Going to put a couple of teams to rest here, but we're going to take a break first. We'll be back to you on the other side. Stay with us.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Benny, appreciate you hopping on, going over some of your underdog picks for Week 16 action in the NFL. Benny, how you doing?
I'm good, fellas. Happy early holidays to you and to yours. Excited to keep things going on the underdog train. Another 2-1 week for us last week, and missed the final one of our plays by an eyelash. So here we go. Let's try and keep it rolling for this week.
Love it. Love it. Ready to go for this week. What do you got to set up here on Underdog? Look, if you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, number one, what are you doing? You got to get involved at Underdog. It's one of the fastest growing apps in the state of Missouri, too. In the state of Missouri, it is booming. So if you are in Missouri, take advantage of that. Use that promo code KCSN. You can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus a free pick here, Benny. So what are we going with for our first pick on our card today? This week.
Yeah, we've been getting either real close or hitting on some of these Thursday night plays. So let's keep the action rolling because we got a little AFC West matchup with the Broncos and the Chargers this week. And I'm going to take a bit of a dice roll with Cortland Sutton to go higher than 0.5 rushing receiving touchdowns tonight for the Broncos on the road at SoFi. You think about the Chargers and you think about, okay, it was Jim Harbaugh team. Defense has been improved throughout the course of the year. Last 3 games, they've gotten worked a little bit, especially in the pass game. And Sutton is, I think, an example of somebody who it's a good sort of squeaky wheel bounce back opportunity for him. Chargers have been a bottom 10 opponent in passing yards in the league over their last 3 games. And you think about the guys over the last 2 weeks that have really worked the Chargers. Think about Mike Evans, 159 yards, 9 catches. Drake London, 9 for 96. And remember, that was with Kirk Cousins throwing him the ball. So, if it's coming from somebody like Kirk, somebody like Bo Nix, who's been pretty surprisingly impressive this year in his first year with Sean Payton, it's a matchup that makes sense. And while you can certainly feel good about, taking the higher on receiving yards or receptions, I like the upside play for the touchdown because it can really boost where your opportunity and payout can go on underdog. And again, this is a Chargers team that while they've been good against the run, you remember those Brandon Staley years, they were atrocious against the run. They've really done a good job of fixing that this year. With somebody like Sutton, who's already the number 1 target in the red zone, as well as a team that's really struggled against the pass, either due to some injuries or some scheme issues the last couple weeks. I think the matchup makes sense. Nix is clearly targeting him a ton, and I think he gets into the red zone. I think he gets a touchdown, and that boosts up your underdog play a lot. So give me Cortland Sutton to get himself into the end zone either by way of rush or reception tonight against the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? Because otherwise, Denver's receivers are like the 3 of us. So, yeah, I think it's probably a good bet. Cortland Sutton's getting targeted. No shade to Devon Vele, who's been a nice rookie, although I guess it is some shade if I'm saying it's 3 of us. Yeah, look, the Chargers defensively have not been good against good offenses. Now, you could argue Denver's offense is not good, and that's fine. But they've not been good down the stretch here, the Chargers defense, that is. The Bengals let them up. The Ravens let them up. The Chiefs scored 19 points against them, which for the Chiefs, that's like lighting somebody up. And then last week here, the Bucs scored 40. So the Chargers have not been the same team. And one thing about Denver, the offensive line has played well this year. I would expect that they're going to be able to hold up and give Nick some time. And if they do, like the best corner that's going to play in this game for the Chargers is Samuel, and he's a smaller corner going against a big-bodied guy like Sutton. And in the red zone, that makes a lot of sense. And look, throw it up to him. He's bigger than him. He's got 4 or 5 inches on the guy. So, yeah, look, I think it's a smart play. Sutton is obviously their best guy. And so if they get down there, he's going to see targets.
We got a 2-pack of running backs next up on your pick, Benny. Where should we go next?
Yeah, I don't know if any of us would have looked at somebody like Chuba Hubbard heading into the fantasy football semifinals and say, hey, this guy might be your league winner this year. But he's had a really good season. And that was with the Panthers still taking Jonathan Brooks, in the 2nd round this year as the first running back off the board. Was still dealing with some injuries, but Hubbard ended up getting a new contract out of it. And I like him to go higher than 70.5 rushing yards at home for the Panthers this week against Arizona. The last couple of weeks, I've shouted out Rhythm for some of their projections when it comes to their projections versus difference in market, which you can find either on Underdog or any of the different sports books. But Hubbard is another guy that they really like. We're talking about probably a 70% difference in market. They have him as a back likely to hit 100 yards on the ground this week. Cardinals defense has improved, but they're still bottom 10 in the league in fantasy points allowed to running backs. Mentioned Jonathan Brooks going back and getting hurt again. So if you're looking at this number collectively, you're saying, okay, where Carolina has had more success with Bryce Young back under center is the run game has opened up some play action for him. It's also allowed him to feel a little bit more confident in the pocket. They've kind of moved the pocket around for him a little bit as well, sometimes cutting the field in half. And also the emergence of Adam Thielen has made a big difference as well. But they still want to get the run game going because they know that it makes life a lot easier for Bryce Young. Factor in it's at home. The fact that Hubbard in this particular spot, when he hasn't been challenged, he's going to get upwards of 20 plus touches. So if he's getting, 3.5 yards per carry on average, which he's more than capable of doing against a fairly soft Arizona run defense, he clears this number. So I think Carolina's been on the verge of trying to get back into things again, feeling good about themselves moving forward. And they know that Hubbard is that guy long-term. So why not keep him rolling? Why not use it in a matchup against Arizona, going from the West Coast to the East Coast in an early start game? So give me Hubbard to go higher than 78.5 rushing yards this week.
I'll be brief. I saw Kyler Murray in his press conference, and somebody told him it was going to be 35 degrees, and his response was, shit. So, yeah, I'm all in on the Panthers playing well this weekend.
I like it. No, I think that's a good philosophy. Any Call of Duty specials going on this weekend? That could also be a
If
tip.
it is, forget it. Hammer the Panthers, and that's Jays.
All right, Vinny, let's wrap it up here on your card. You got one, maybe a little bit of a sneak peek to the Chiefs picks you got coming later this week.
Yeah, always fun to try to sneak in a Chiefs related play into the mix here, and I'm actually going to go for somebody on Houston and take a lower. So hopefully Chiefs fans should feel good about that. Joe Mixon's had a nice year in Houston, but I like him to go lower than his combined rushing receiving yards at 87.5. You think about him collectively over the course of the season. Yeah, he's missed some time, but when he's played, he's been really solid. Last week, though, not the case. 23 yards, had a bit of a mild ankle injury. And if you actually look in 3 of his last 5 games, he's had fewer than 50 yards on the ground. He also just hasn't been that involved in the passing game. His projections right now about 22.5 yards. Again, this is also a Chiefs defense that has been best in the NFL in fewest fantasy points allowed to running backs over the course of the year. So all these different combinations are at play. Chiefs are a favorite. Mixon has been slowing down in the run game. He hasn't been that involved in the passing game, and he's got a bad ankle. 87.5 feels like a lot against the team that has been very stout against running backs predominantly throughout most of the year. So I think you'll see more CJ Stroud. I think you'll see him try to spread it out a little bit. Maybe even an opportunity for Tank Dell to get himself involved a little bit. But as far as Mixon is concerned, this just does not feel like the volume-based opportunity that he's likely going to have given the injury and given how this game script sets up. So I think the lower on 87.5 rushing and receiving yards feels like a good number to take advantage of and bounce on the lower side of things.
I think you're probably right. I think lower is probably the right play. I mean, realistically, just looking at the matchup, looking at the situation, I think you're probably like, I am not the gambling aficionado that you are, sir, but I would also say lower.
There it is. We have some unison. We have let the children sing.
That scare everybody, by the way. All agreements. That's when people might start to go, maybe I take the over or the higher, I should say.
There you go.
Higher.
Make sure to go take advantage of those higher and lower plays on the pick'ems on Underdog Fantasy. You can do that. I guess it's not Underdog Fantasy anymore. Just Underdog. They dropped the fantasy part. They're just Underdog. You go take advantage of it.
We've all been embracing for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Very, very true. Go use that promo code KCSN. Go get involved in those pick'em actions there. Vinny, appreciate your time.
All right, fellas, be good.
We haven't done this in a minute, Matt. We haven't put some teams to rest.
True.
Some teams have been on ICU, on life support for a while, and you know what? I think they just kicked it. Let's go ahead. We're pulling the plug on 2 teams this week, and let's get into it.
Time to lay the Indianapolis Colts down for a long winter's nap. They had a chance in Denver. Then they ran the worst trick play ever witnessed. Nick Bonito's still running. The Colts, however, are not. It's time to throw dirt on the Colts, but don't let Anthony Richardson do it, because he'll miss it entirely. Colts laid to rest for Week 16. And the Miami Dolphins. Let's make sure we lay them to rest really close to the equator so they're right at home. Because if they're in the cold, we're going to have to pack about 3,200 pounds of winter gear for them as we lower them into the frozen, unthawed ground. Miami, every opportunity to make the playoffs, but they finally would have had to have beaten a good team. Down they go.
Fitting for the Dolphins to go out that way. I saw a stat, Matt. I don't know if this is real or not, because when you see stats on Twitter, you always have to be like,
You're right.
I don't know if that's real. I think someone might be making that up. Like Mike McDaniel's like 3-20 something against teams with like a 500 record or something like that, higher than a 500 record. That seems crazy.
Yeah, I know he only has 3 wins against winning teams.
That's not good.
But this is why when people like talk about it, like it's here. I'm gonna let everybody in a little like media thing that happens. That media people always love to deny happens, but it happens. Mike McDaniel was never like an accomplished assistant in a way that you're like, oh my god, like, he has to be hired, like Ben Johnson, something like that, or Eric Bieniemy for that matter. Okay. Mike McDaniel worked under Kyle Shanahan, and in this day and age, like if you work under Kyle Shanahan, you work under Sean McVay, like you're gonna get a job, right? And fine, like I'm not even saying it was undeserving, but it was just like people like tripped over themselves, like oh my god, it's a home run hire. You know why? Because he's friendly with the media, and when we all go out to the combine, he's accessible, and Mike's a good guy, like. No issue with any of that. But like people in the media trip over him because he looks cool. He's got his Yeezys on and he's got his hair is on point. He's got his watch. Like it's the same reason like people fawned all over Brendan Staley at first because Brendan Staley gave really like cool analytical answers at his press conferences. And it's like, yeah, it's awesome. He sucks. He can't coach. And then there's Belichick. I don't give a shit. We're on Cincinnati. Your question's stupid. Next. And like people like bitch about him. He's like, yeah, you know what? He's got 8 Super Bowl rings on his fingers.
Right.
Like, Andy Reid is not exactly like Joe personality up at the lectern every week. Like he'll crack a joke here and there, and it's obviously has personality. But Andy Reid is the master of saying nothing for 10 minutes 3 times a week. Yeah, gotta get out there, gotta play good. Gotta execute. It's a good team over there. Got a lot of good players, and time's yours. And it's like people give Mike McDaniel this ultimate pass because he's hip and he's cool, and I wish it were colder. And it's like, no, you don't. Let's be real. No, you don't. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Actually, not sure you're a good coach. You never win any game that matters ever. Like I am the biggest pessimist when it comes to the Chiefs in terms of like just when they're actually on TV, because it's just built into me from 25 years of growing up and they stuck. I will tell you the one time in a playoff game, I was like, there's no way they're losing this game. And it was that Miami game.
Yeah.
I remember I was supposed to cover that game for us, but I couldn't get there because the weather was so bad. I couldn't get through Iowa. Just turned around and came back and watching on Peacock that night. And I remember they just showed the intro to the stadium. And they showed like people breathing. And I texted my dad, I'm like, this game's over.
Yeah.
There's no chance Miami's winning this game. And that was, of course, the fans game. Mahomes, like his helmet shattered. He's playing with it. And the Dolphins are all caped up. Like this game's just forget it. No chance. Yeah. I don't know why we spend time pretending like Mike McDaniel's a great coach. He's not a great coach. He's a guy. To this point, he's a guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great point. It's a conversation that's starting to be had. Maybe a conversation that should have been had a year ago, because I don't think anything's really changed in terms of anything in that building of what's happened there. But some things that did change in some buildings around the National Football League. Joe Douglas obviously fired as the Jets GM. I do always love this when GMs get fired and then you get to hear the craziest stories about the owner. It seems like it always happens. Just like it's habitual, right? Like that's just what happens. Woody Johnson for the New York Jets. There's a piece out there. I believe it was Diana Rossini wrote it on The Athletic.
It always when it's the Jets, man. It's Diana.
Yeah. What the report that she tweeted out, or the part of the tweet that I saw was Woody Johnson vetoed a trade for Jerry Jeudy because his Madden rating was too low.
Yep.
Thoughts, Matt?
Woody Johnson. It's Jets. And that seems really on brand. Like, I just, look, man, this is why they suck, okay? And this is why they will continue to suck. And as someone who has a deep and passionate loathing for Fireman Ed, I'm fine with it. There's not a worse person in the world than Fireman.
Fraud, truthfully.
Oh my God. Nobody, I guess I should say in sports, nobody in sports is worse than Fireman Ed.
Now look, the Chiefs have put up some super fans up there to rival Fireman Ed. And
you know what? Yeah. At least the Chiefs fan. Never been yet. I was thinking of one guy. I started thinking of another guy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Chiefs have had some very interesting people. Let's put it that way.
Uh-huh.
The Chiefs have inspired documentaries. Okay.
Multiple.
So that is true. So you're right. Like there are people that are obviously worse in sports. There's no one who's a bigger self-promoter than
there we go.
Okay. I think that's the way that's what I was looking for. Thank you for helping me get there. Cause yes, there are people who are definitely worse. No one's a bigger self-promoter. So I'm just glad that they suck every year. Just for no other reason because of that. But here's the thing with the Jets in a serious way. So season's going to end here in a few weeks. They got to get a new GM, new head coach, maybe new quarterback. We'll see. Yep. You talk to people around the league, and they're like, "That's not an attractive job because it's Woody Johnson. Who the hell wants to go there?"
Correct.
And it's like Woody Johnson he gets a weird free pass. I feel like we've always talked about Dan Snyder, terrible owner, or now it's like Tepper in Carolina. He's a terrible owner. Woody Johnson is a fucking atrocity of an owner.
Yeah.
And it's like, it gets talked about, but not really. Like, he's a terrible owner.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I mean, they're going to continue to suck because Woody Johnson's involved. And I can tell you right now, somebody who's a Knicks fan who dealt with James Dolan forever.
Yeah.
Like, you can bring in everybody you want. If that owner's a meddlesome pain in the ass and he's not a good owner, you're going to stink. And they stink.
Yeah. I mean, they're just a poorly run organization. And I do think that, like, it is so crazy, like, how much the owner does impact, like, the Jets' attractiveness as a job. I had a buddy tell me, I was like, I don't know if, like, Ben Johnson wants to go to Chicago. He's a Bears fan, right? He said, Chicago's the most attractive job there is. I was like, there's no way that's the case. And then I started looking at the other jobs, Matt. I said, well, you know what? When you line up this piece of poop next to all the other pieces of poop, this one does look like the best piece of shit that's out there. You know, like that's just kind of by default, yes, this is the most attractive job out there. Yeah, the Jets are a dumpster fire. I started thinking about Chiefs super fans, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I went down that rabbit hole yesterday, on my own, just sitting here on my desk, thinking about, I wonder what this guy's up to. You ever see people, Matt, and you think, man, I hope they're doing well. Every time I see Mike DeVito, I think, I hope he's doing well. Love Mike. Mike's a great guy.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way when I see some Chiefs super fans.
I would share that sentiment. There are a couple of them out there that probably, I don't really care if they're doing well or not.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a fair comment. I will say this about Chiefs fans. Better or worse, they really get their money's worth for their publicity.
Golly.
Like,
I tell you.
Out robbing banks and stuff. I mean, and then having a lawyer who's doing like football references. And it's like, it's on, ESPN. There's a doc. There's all this stuff. You're like, some people rob banks, and then there's Chiefs fan who robs a bank and turns it into a national story.
Yeah.
You're like, that's great, man. I mean, yeah, some of these people are just catastrophes. And they also happen to like the Chiefs. It's great.
Right. That's what I go. They also like the Chiefs. Yeah. No.
Who robbed the bank? Well, is Chiefsaholic, right?
That's Chiefsaholic. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There are some other ones that I won't even get. I will not touch now with the 10-foot pole. But like, the Chiefsaholic. Like, so when he gets out of prison, like, do they let him bang the drum?
Oh, he's not getting out. You think he's getting out? I don't think he gets out. He robbed a teacher's credit union. He's not getting out.
I mean, hey, man, people have gotten out who've done some real heinous stuff.
That's a great point. I shouldn't give that much credit to the U.S. Justice.
I was going to say, let's not assume. Okay,
That's fair.
so he was. I'm looking this up because now we're done.
We're done it. We're down it. We've done it.
Okay. Oh, he's getting out, man. So, according to the United States Department of Justice website,
Oh no.
he was sentenced to 17 years and 6 months without parole. Well, he's getting out. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when he does get out, are the Chiefs just like, listen, he's one of the most famous people attached to this organization. Have banged the drum.
Chiefs be playing by Johnson County by that point. By the time he gets out, though, like they'll be in Kansas in their spaceship that probably hovers above the ground. By the time he gets out,
it's unbelievable. The Chiefs are just. There are a few franchises where they more just like the history of the team. Some of the stuff that happens. Like, what happened?
yeah.
What are they like? Some good and like really entertaining and colorful. Some tragic, and then some like Chiefsaholic, where you're just like, what happened? Like,
Incredibly tragic and incredibly hilarious too.
Yeah,
There's
like,
just
a huge range of things with this team. You're like, but yeah, in any event, but yeah, as far as listen, wrap it here. But as far as the game goes this week, like, yeah, look, who the hell's calling me a spam? As far as the game goes this week, I mean, I think it's huge in the sense if you win this game, you got 2 cracks at it if you need it. And Denver might be playing for nothing in Week 18. So, they're the Chiefs. Like, this is a big opportunity. I know people are like, oh, they got a game to play with. Yeah, that's fine and well. This is a big opportunity. You win this game, you're in phenomenal shape.
Oh yeah. So mathematically, right? There's 3 games left.
Yep.
Chiefs obviously this week will play that's the Texans, and they have the Steelers, and they have the Broncos. And we already mentioned earlier in the podcast the Bills play the Patriots twice and the Jets sandwiched in between. So they have a game and a half technically on the Bills. Is that right? In terms of the AFC playoff picture for the 1 seed, it's like a game and a half. So if they would still have to win next week too. If the Bills were to lose this week, they win next week, then they could actually lock it up mathematically. Well, it'd be 2.5 with 2 left. No, they could lock it up if they
Chiefs win this week and Buffalo loses at home in a shocker to New England. Buffalo can no longer catch them, and the Steelers are 3 back as they sit. So a win here by the Chiefs. The magic number is 1 with the Steelers. Essentially, it is 2 with the Bills.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes
nobody else can catch them. Houston can't catch them.
Right.
Baltimore can't catch them. Those are the only 2 teams that mathematically can catch them. But the number is 1 with Pittsburgh, which I think Saturday, one way or the other, is going to be taken care of.
Yes.
And then the number is 2 with the Bills.
Yep, that makes sense. The playoff picture is getting clearer and clearer. We talked about last week kind of with the Broncos and the Colts. So like the teams are essentially set now. With who's going to be in, it's just the seeding of where they're going to be is going to be the very fun thing. I still kind of wish, Matt, that like the Bengals could still get in the playoffs. They just need the Broncos to lose to the Chiefs, but the Chiefs.
The absolute funniest outcome is the Bengals somehow being the 7th seed and playing the Bills in the first round and beating them. Just Burrow scoring like 45, and Allen just like these get, unless he can't keep up, and then we got the whole Bills discourse all off season, and then of course the Bengals who come to play Kansas City, and it would be just a complete tension convention for a week as the Bengals, and we get to hear Jamar Chase being like, "Told you we're the best team in the AFC," and you spend the whole week doing that. Like the Bengals are probably not making the playoffs, but like that would be. If you're the Bills, that's got to be worst case scenario. Like, oh my God, like Burrow and Chase come in here, and like we may give up 70. Yeah, I mean, but the Bengals are also like potentially going to give up 70, so good times.
Yeah, I do think it would be funny if we had a wild card exit for the Buffalo Bills after everyone's talking about how like they can't be stopped. That would be just very funny, very fitting.
Can you imagine if they lost to Denver, like Bo Nix?
Look, I don't really want to see Bo Nix in the playoffs. I don't really want to see.
Imagine if Denver went up there and like to just shut him down and beat him like 17-13. You know, you have McDermott just running fake punch from his own 10-yard line down 3 with,
Right.
8 minutes left.
He forgets how to coach, obviously. It's the divisional round, so he can't coach, right?
Look, man, I've said on about 9 radio shows this week, everybody's asking this question. Bills or Chiefs, who you got? Like, in playoff game? The Chiefs.
Yeah.
Because the Bills will forget how to play football.
Yeah.
For like a 90-second span, and that's enough in a playoff game. Like,
100%.
The Chiefs, for all their ridiculous bullshit, won't beat themselves in a playoff game. The Bills do nothing but beat themselves in playoff games. So it's like, yeah, I think at some point that's just probably what will happen. That'll be it. That'll be a difference.
I think so. I think that will be. I think it's going to also do it for this week's edition of That Football Show here on KC Sports Center. Thanks to our sponsors, Ben Holiday, Bottled and Bond Bourbon. I actually got the bottle right here of the KCSM Foundation Barrel Pick, 7-year pick for us. Also, Holiday Distillery just announced they have an 8-year coming out of their original blend. So go check that out. Holiday Distillery at Holiday 1856 on Twitter if you're into that thing. But appreciate it. Listening all the way to the end of the podcast. Drop a 5-star rating and review. Leave a comment on Spotify as well if you enjoyed the show. We'll get the conversation started there. Make sure to review us there as well. Hit a like and subscribe on YouTube for more of our shows we got coming up for you. We got a little bit of a weird week coming up with the Christmas schedule and everything. We'll let you know how our recording schedule shapes up there. But from Matt Verderame, I'm Tucker Franklin. We'll talk to you guys next week.